In our next session, we'll hear from Dirk Schrödter, Head of State Chancellery for Schleswig-Holstein in Germany, and Adriano Pitteri from SRG SSR in Switzerland. They'll discuss the significant transitions to DAB+ in their respective countries. Mr. Schrödter joins us by video, and then I'll welcome Adriano to the stage.
Dear Ms. President Jacqueline Bierhorst, dear members of the General DAB+ Assembly. It's a great pleasure and honor for me as Minister for Digitization and Media Policy of the state of Schleswig-Holstein, the northernmost German state, to speak to you today. My goal is to develop our state into a leading region, and it's exactly what we are doing. We are shaping the digital transformation in our state because digitalization is changing the way we live and work together. But it's also rapidly changing our media consumption habits. Radio is truly a wonderful medium. I could not imagine life without it. Whether in the kitchen or in the car, radio accompanies me throughout the day. And it continues to do so in a linear way. Linear radio will not lose its appeal in the future because it informs us quickly, easily, and reliable, no matter the time of the day. However, it is also clear that linear radio must be transformed for the digital future. Simulcasting should not be a permanent solution. No one would think of building two train stations next to each other. Two transmission infrastructures generate unnecessary costs and are not sustainable. Ladies and gentlemen, scientifically proven, Schleswig-Holstein is home of the happiest people in Germany. This is surely also due to the great radio stations we have in the north. And now we are making people even happier. Schleswig-Holsteiners will be the first in Germany to fully switch to the new, more convenient DAB+ standard. We are the first region in Germany to develop a clear transition plan. In times when reliable journalism and trustworthy media services are more important than ever, we want to lead the way into the digital future of radio broadcasting. With DAB+, we are creating a more media diversity, which is extremely important in an era where deepfakes and fake news are on the rise. Our geographical and topographical conditions offer best prerequisites for the transition to DAB+. With our location between the North Sea and the Baltic Sea, we have relatively well-defined broadcasting areas in our state. There are little overlap with stations from other countries. These factors provide best conditions in our state for the transition, combined with our ambition to be among Germany's digital pioneers. We are now moving forward. We are able to bring the broadcasters first to our side and then on board. The transition, therefore, is not being imposed. It's a joint effort in close cooperation. Together with the involved parties, private and public broadcasters, commercial and non-commercial radio stations, community broadcasters, infrastructure providers, and our media authority, we have developed a roadmap for coming years. We founded a roundtable and we discussed the process. But the government have had a strong vision for the transition, and we communicate the vision in a very, very clear way. Our plan envisions the transition in several stages. In 2025, we will begin with the first stations, and the process will be completed by mid-2031. At this time, all stations in Schleswig-Holstein will have completed the transition to DAB+. In just few months, the first stations will completely switch from FM to DAB+ and IP web radio. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to highlight one point which is crucial for this success. FM licenses must not be resued after their expiration. This needs to be regulated by law. This creates security for the transition to DAB+ as new market entries and thus potential competition of FM will be prevented. In Schleswig-Holstein, we regulated this law by 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, and why does it work? Because everyone is working together in the same direction. Now it's a time to convince listeners of the benefits. More media diversity, better quality, improved capabilities to issue warnings in crisis situations. The list could go on. I don't need to list all the advantages for you. You know them well. However, there's one aspect that is less known outside our professional circles. But in my opinion, it is a good argument present to the public. DAB+ is significantly more energy efficient. That is an important contribution to sustainability in the media sector. The transition is therefore also a crucial contribution to our state goal of becoming the first climate neutral state in Germany. The transition is also a part of the decarbonization of our economy. Ladies and gentlemen, we are also aware that the transition brings challenges for the broadcasters. Broadcasters need to invest in new technology, and there are concerns about listener retention and vivid advertising customers. That is why I face strong opposition from other parts of Germany. Many actors view our state as a dangerous precedent with potential ripple effects in Germany. I understand these concerns. That's why we in Schleswig-Holstein have had extensive discussions, weighed the pros and cons, developed solutions in common and made agreements to minimize these worries. A clear agreement. The local and regional news coverage remains an important part of the radio broadcasting in Schleswig-Holstein. As a part of our roadmap, technical innovations and solutions are to be explored in pilot projects between radio broadcasters and academia supported by the state. These innovations aim to enable more localized news coverage beyond the existing DAB+ coverage areas. This focus is particularly on hybrid radio reception technologies, which is innovatively combined with DAB+ broadcasting with smart radio and streaming. Further, the parties involved in radio broadcasting aim to make success of the digitalization project measurable through key performance indicators. To this end, well-known metrics will be regularly collected and evaluated in accompanying study. And we are confident we will overcome the challenges together. We rely on close cooperation with our radio stations and our media authority and on informing the public. Ladies and gentlemen, that's why we need unified communication strategy, which we have developed and implementing. We are comprehensively informing our population about the transition. We have already started. The radio stations in Schleswig-Holstein are also using their communication channels to inform their listeners about the timetable and the benefits of DAB+. Additionally, we will be organizing online and social media activities as well as in-person events to accompany the transition. Retailers will also play an important role. Staff in electronic stores will be regularly trained to provide competent advice. Flyers and information on DAB+ reception will be available on site. The DAB+ logo will ensure clear recognition and make it easier for customers to purchase suitable devices. To sum up, dear member of the Assembly, Schleswig-Holstein is taking the lead. But our path to the digital future of radio is a collective journey. I look forward to working in the coming years to ensure that radio continues to play its important role in the digital era in Germany. We are also a bit proud to be the first state in Germany to take this step and perhaps to inspire others. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Dirk Schrödter from the happiest state in Germany, Schleswig-Holstein. Now to bring us up to date on a switchover that is just 6 weeks away. 6 weeks. Please welcome Adriano Pitteri.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, and I'm happy to see that in Germany the digital switchover is going good forward. Norway was the first country to switch off the FM, and now Switzerland will follow in 47 days. It's short, at the end of this year. Let me give you a look back in Switzerland, the history of DAB+, and how we came to this switch off in Switzerland. 1999, first transmitter, DAB transmitter in Switzerland. 2009, the introduction of DAB+, but the key turning point in Switzerland was 2014. In this year, it was really the turning point of the digitalization of the radio in Switzerland. All the entire radio industry came together to plan the future of radio. There was the regulator, the public broadcaster, the private broadcaster, but also all the key stakeholders that participate to this ecosystem with the car industry, with the consumer electronic retail sector, and all together, and I know it's not every time's friends, but we achieved to work together and do a plan and roadmap to fix the switch off of the FM between 2024. And this roadmap was published on the aegis of the Federal Council with a 2-phase migration plan, first until 2020 to promotion of DAB+, and between 20 and 2024, the switch off campaign. 2020 was a turning point also with, for the DAB+. It was the year where DAB+ became the major vector in the usage, but also on a regulatory basis, it was the main radio vector. In 2023, the government gives 2 more years for the radio to switch off, so postponed to 2026. And this extra time will enable the private radio that are depending on advertisement revenue to have even a little bit more time to prepare and to be sure that the listener are ready for their switch off. And yes, end of this year, it will be the switch off of the public broadcasting service and also some transmitter from the private radio who also participate to this switch off. And as I said before, the end of 2026 will be the end of the FM licenses in Switzerland. Yes, end of the year. FM switch off for the SRG SSR, so the public service. And how and why do we switch off? There are different reasons. The first, the SRG has emphasized from the outset that DAB+ will be the technology of the future for the radio. And so after more than 15 years of simultaneous broadcasting, the signal FM and DAB+, it's now time to finalize this replacement. And the DAB+ coverage is also excellent, with far over 99% of the population that is covered in Switzerland. And you know, we have mountains, so it's a huge work. Congratulations to our team. And the DAB has even a better coverage than FM now, and with plenty of new extra programs, so all the benefits. The SRG SSR remain also a point of reference for emergencies, and so our main DAB transmitter are and the routing system are supplied with emergency power up to 10. Oh, sorry, no, it's not. Up to 10 days emergency power, and in some crisis situation, we have the possibility to increase the coverage by improving the protection level of the DAB at EEP 1A, and so go even more deep in the houses or further broader. The economical point is also a main point. And in view of the SRG strained financial situation that we are facing due to the decline of the advertisement revenue and the inflation, a further investment in outdated broadcasting technology wasn't anymore justifiable. The digital radio use is also well advanced. With DAB and IP, there are two now digital reception options that offer a better sound quality and a greater program selection in Switzerland. And for the DAB, we heard already, it's also a more energy and cost-efficient way to distribute our programs, and with additional information. And we see it, the user behavior shows also that a huge majority of the population is already using the digital radio. For the digital radio usage, it's over 80%, and if we look the people that are only listening on FM, it's less than 10%, and that's a huge achievement. And with this FM switch off, the SRG is also supporting the entire radio industry in Switzerland, and so help the private radio to do easier the digital switchover. So now, how do we proceed of this switch off? The SRG will do a simultaneous switch off of all the FM transmitter in Switzerland of the public broadcaster at the new year at midnight. We will switch off all the FM transmitter. And to do so, a key measure that we put in place to reach the target audience are announcement that we play exclusively on the FM frequency. This message, which interrupt the FM program, are designed to make the listener aware that they are still listening on FM, and to encourage them to switch to DAB+ or digital radio. And we had a great success with this measure, because we see when this announcement are played, we have a lot of calls and support messages that are coming to our help line and more to ask help. How can I improve my radio? And this help is provided with a huge information campaign that we're doing on all the country, and also a strong help consumer reaction support that we're providing within personal sustain. And important point also is all the support of the specialist dealer. So we are organizing events with the car industry, with the consumer electronic retail sector, to help them to do this transition, and that everybody is ready at the end of the year for this switch off. And a colleague from the Graubünden in the mountain in Switzerland told me she is doing this special campaign with the garage, and some garage sells and adapt more DAB radio than winter tire change, so I think we are on the good way. So, let me present you 25 seconds. It's the TV spot that we're now broadcasting extensively since October until December to promote the DAB+ and announce the switchover.
UKW wird abgeschaltet. Prüfen Sie Ihr Radio. Sehen Sie im Display hinter dem Sendernamen ein Plus. Können Sie DAB+ als Empfangsquelle auswählen? Finden Sie in der Bedienungsanleitung einen Hinweis auf DAB+. Wenn ja, empfängt es DAB+. Wenn nicht,
it's simple, clear, declined in our 4 languages. As you know, we have 4 official languages in Switzerland, and adapted for all the region. And always with the slogan, here it was on German, but the spot is in the 4 language, always with the slogan, think about your radio. And check that your radio receive DAB+. And that's really the key message that we find on every communication for the TV spot, but also on all the information campaign out of home that are started, digital marketing, and so on. And this campaign has been signed with the Swiss radio station and refers the people to the dabplus.ch site where all the information are on this website. And this campaign, this was sponsored by the regulator in Switzerland, the Ofcom, for all the radio industry in Switzerland. Yes, and this DAB+ website, on this website you find all the information you need to the support of the FM switch-off, the most frequently asked question, which radio station are affected, how to retrofit your car with DAB+, and so on. And a strong focus is put on supporting people. And so we have also a chatbot that provides a personalized answer to the people's question. And for more specific question, the SRG SSR put also a call center by telephone and email to provide even better, more personalized support to our listeners. On this website, you find also a lot of tutorials. That's the way to teach and school in an easy way how to retrofit your car, how to check that your radio can or cannot listen DAB+, and so on. Well, that was it for my presentation about Switzerland. If you have any question about the switch-off in Switzerland, if you're interested to give a second life to one of our FM transmitter, I will be happy to be in touch with you at the summit or afterward via email. Thank you very much for inviting me here, and I hope will be an inspiration forward the digital switchover in your country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Adriano. And good luck on the 31st of December. And don't forget to email him if you want an FM transmitter. You heard it here. We turn our focus to Spain now. Joining us is Javier Sanchez-Perez from RTVE. He'll share Spain's vision for a broadcast digital future, including recent DAB+ rollouts across some very major cities. Javier.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. We have an excellent news in Spain today. Today is just the day that we are celebrating the 100th anniversary of radio. And today, 100 years ago, the first legal station in Spain, Radio Barcelona, started to transmit. For celebrating this, RTVE has launched today, this morning, Radio 4, Radio 4, that is our Catalonian station that transmits in Catalonian language. It's the first DAB+ legal station in Catalonia. And yes, of course, that we have digital radio in Spain. But imagine a country in where nobody wants to speak a single word about digital radio. This is Spain, yeah? And the story you are about to see is true, and the names haven't changed to protect the innocent in this case. We have to go back to 1997, and in those years, the government established the framework for digital radio and DTT in the worst way possible. In the worst way possible, because there was no dialogue with the DTT or TV or radio industry, and it was established by law at the end of the year. What was the reaction of the private radios in Spain? One single word: fear. Fear, yeah? Because there was risk of new radio stations or radio groups. And if you broke the status quo, you know what is happening with their business. 2 years after, we had the first technical plan in Spain. And this technical plan is exactly the same that we have nowadays, yeah? In those years, we don't have space for all the radios in Spain. So private radios reaction was very simple. What is DAB for private radios? The devil, directly. Nobody wants to speak about digital radio in Spain. And today, the official position is exactly the same. We had an era of deployment, but a very limited deployment, because we didn't have any kind of promotion about digital radio in Spain. Nobody knows what is digital radio. No receivers available in shops, so it's simply clear. It's pretty clear. Nobody wants to develop DAB market. In those times appears DAB Plus, and DAB is obsolete. And RTVE and private radios start to think what to do with this, because nobody wants DAB in Spain. We had perhaps the last meeting of all the radios in Spain in 2011. In 2011, in order to migrate from DAB to DAB+. And we had a plan. We had a plan to foster the digitization of radio in Spain. A wonderful plan. A wonderful plan because we have 5 measures. 5 measures, yeah. Fantastic measures. A study on the establishment of a date for the analog switch off. Wow, fantastic. But it wasn't a fantastic plan because the only measure adopted was the reduction of DAB coverage from the 50% to the 20% of the population. And this is the same situation that we had until February of this year. During the past 12 years, we have crossed the desert in Spain, directly. In 2020, there was a political proposal for launching DAB+ in Spain. It was an urgent law for measures to implement DAB+ in Spain, and it was rejected by the government, directly. And in February of this year, RTVE tried to change this. And in the radio, the World Radio Day of this year, we launched DAB+. We started all in 2 towns with DAB in the previous days, and nowadays we have 12 sites. 12 sites. And we're increasing the coverage until the 50% of the population at the end of this year, of the beginning of the next year. What have we done in those months? We have increased the coverage in several cities, yeah? And not only because we had promotional events in those places in where we were launching DAB+. And in those events, we had local authorities, regional broadcasters, the industry, and other stakeholders important on the deployment of digital radio in Spain. We also have a workshop in RTVE because it's part of our mission of public service to explain what is digital radio in Spain to all the main stakeholders. What are the things that we are going to do, or we are doing right now? First of all, Radio 4 is now on air today, has been launched. We will sign in public a memorandum of understanding all the regional radios in Spain supporting the DAB+. Nowadays, we have 2 regions in Spain, Asturias and Balearic Island, that have announced that they will launch DAB+ services next year. We have 2 public regional broadcasters that have announced to go to DAB+ next year. And the more important thing, perhaps, is that we had advanced discussions with the Spanish administration and all the actors involved in the deployment of DAB+ to have a new technical plan. So after 27 years, RTVE is placing DAB+ on the Spanish agenda. And I can assure you that this is not easy. But that's what RTVE is doing for promoting the implementation of DAB+ in Spain. And that's all. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Javier, and congratulations on a really momentous, historic day today. Really great news. And thank you for sharing some of the challenges that I think many countries face, and some inspiration to show that we can learn and we can move forward and have a day like today on your 100th anniversary. Congratulations. So we've talked a lot about how DAB+ networks are much more energy efficient. So I'm really thrilled to hear from Phil Kesby from Arqiva. He'll present a groundbreaking project that reduces energy consumption of DAB networks created in collaboration with the BBC. Please welcome Phil.
Okay, thank you very much. So, yeah, this is indeed a joint project between the BBC and Arqiva, looking at reducing the energy consumption on our existing terrestrial DAB networks. DAB in the UK is absolutely the most prominent network or platform used for radio consumers to consume radio. But increasingly, broadcasters are required to adhere to new sustainability targets. So the objective of this project was to see if we could actually reduce the energy consumed in our networks without impacting the consumer. Now, obviously, one way that we could do that is that we could just perhaps re-engineer for more modern, more efficient transmitter equipment, which is obviously something we have to do from time to time anyway. But sometimes that's a bit cost prohibitive because the size of the networks that we're talking about, which I'll come on to in a moment. So yeah, the objective of this is to see is anything else that we could do beyond our normal expectations and our normal re-engineering programs. So the BBC have published their sustainability targets, and it basically requires a 28% reduction on all of their terrestrial broadcast platforms by 2030. And DAB is not alone. We need to do that 28% reduction on that DAB network as well. So the BBC DAB network consumes approximately 10 gigawatt hours per year. So to give you an idea about what that means, that's approximately 4,000 UK homes, which that 10 gigawatt hours per year consists of, which is about 13% of the total energy usage by the BBC's terrestrial platforms. But the network is a big network. It's over 400 transmitters, and it provides over 97% coverage to the UK. But the network has been installed over many years. Some of the transmitters are over 25 years old. Some of them are much more modern. The older transmitters, older in design, much more difficult to adapt and to change to improve their system electrical efficiency. But we're seeing sometimes as low as 10 to 20% electrical efficiency on this plant. The more modern transmitters, generally Doherty in design, the efficiency is much better. Here we're talking about 30 to even up to 50% these days. But because of the deployment and because we've got about 150 of the more modern transmitters, which are more able to be changed and reconfigured to optimize their energy, this project is solely looking at those 150 Doherty transmitters to see if we could improve or reduce the energy usage and improve the efficiency in the network. So, yes, so basically DAB uses a wideband OFDM DQPSK modulation, so that basically means that we modulate 2 bits per carrier per symbol period. On the left-hand side of the diagram, we've got a composite time domain representation of the DAB signal. So when these 1536 carriers do not all add up in phase, we end up with the mean amplitude of the signal. But statistically over time, those carriers do add up in phase, and we get these peaks that you can see across the diagram. So historically, what we've had to do in historical designs of amplifiers at least, is that we've allowed lots of headroom to cope with those peaks, because if we start to clip those peaks, we can distort the signal, and I'll come on to a bit more of that in a second. So what we do historically, we have lots of headroom. That leads to slightly, it can lead to poor efficiency in the amplifier. So what can we do? Well, we can crudely clip that signal. So that means that we reduce the voltage power supply, and that basically means that over time, we accept that we're going to clip that signal, but we've got to be quite careful about that. We've got to protect those peaks, because if we clip too aggressively, we increase in-band, and if we do it too severely, out-of-band intermodulation products. When we start creating those intermodulation products, we will also degrade a parameter known as the modulation error ratio. So we need to be quite careful about how we optimize that signal for efficiency, so we don't go too far and reduce the RF quality. So MER at the receiver. So MER at the receiver is basically made of three component parts. There's the receiver noise, which is basically native to the technology, but also receiver design and implementation. Channel impairments, which I'll come on to in a bit, and then the transmitter signal, the MER. On this graph, we can see the relationship of MER and the impact on reception. So on the right-hand side, we've got a very high MER, which is actually quite common for most broadcast networks. Broadcasters have had a legacy approach to have a high MER to have a high-quality signal and not to impact the receiver. But at these high MERs, we can find that we have lower transmitter efficiency. What we can do is that we can reduce the MER, and as we reduce the MER, we reduce the signal quality, but we do improve the transmitter efficiency. Now, the actual characteristic of the curve is given here, but the most important thing to really take from this is that this is a non-linear curve. And historically, as I say, broadcasters have often used 30 dB MER or more, but the point of this whole project really is, can we exploit this section of the curve? Can we actually relax the MER just a little bit and then optimize the power supply and the amplifier in sympathy so that the transmitter's not using as much energy and it becomes more efficient? So to look at this, we had to do some lab tests. And basically what that meant is that we needed to put some RF waveforms on a signal generator here, and we needed to play them out to a reference DAB receiver on the right-hand side. But to get to that point, we took a BBC ETI file off the WorldDAB library, and we passed that through a software modulator to create something called IQ samples, and from there we could put them through an amplitude clipper. And depending upon how that clipper was configured, we could create different RF waveforms with different MER values. Once we got to that point, we could put the files onto our ARB, or our signal generator, on our test equipment, and we could play them through to our reference receiver. But there's two more boxes in this signal generator that need a bit of explanation as well. So with the best MER file at 30 dB, we indeed played that into our reference receiver, which is the RNS ETL on the right-hand side, but we needed to get to a reference BER as well. So the AWGN, that is a wideband noise source, and we increased that noise source until we got to 5% errors on the receiver with our 30 dB MER high-quality RF signal. Once we did that, we then changed the MER file for the lower MER file in 5 dB steps, and then we repeated the process, and it's the difference in that wideband signal level which we recorded and effectively creates the curve you saw in the previous slide. However, that's not the end of the story. We have to do this in something called a Gaussian channel and also a fade-in channel. And very briefly, what is that? So in a transmitter coverage area, you have a combination of line of sight and non-line of sight conditions. In line of sight conditions, you effectively have a good RF path between the transmitter antenna and the receiver antenna. And this pretty much ends up in this Gaussian channel on the left-hand side. But we needed to repeat all of those tests in a fading channel, because a fading channel is where the non-line of sight, where the receiver gets lots of reflections, and it impairs the RF channel. As you can see, there's lots of notches. So we had to repeat both those tests with both those channel conditions. So these are the results. But before I get on to what the results mean, you can see there's now two curves. The reason there's two curves is just going back to that fading channel, Gaussian channel argument. The dotted line is the fading channel curve, and it curves earlier because we need a more or a higher S upon N to cope with those notches that you see in that channel. So that's why it curves earlier. Then you've got the solid line, which is a Gaussian channel. However, irrespective of how we drove the fading or the Gaussian channel, all of the results converge on the solid line, the Gaussian channel. And that's great news. But the reason why it all falls onto the Gaussian curve is because the MER noise is linked to the carrier power, and it actually looks like a Gaussian signal. So funnily enough, it all sits on that Gaussian curve. So what does that mean? Well, that's great news, because not only can we exploit the shape of the curve fundamentally, so we're going to drive our MER perhaps down from 30 to a lower number, perhaps to 20, and because all of our results don't hug the fading channel curve, they hug the Gaussian curve, we can exploit that effect as well. So we've got a double whammy of benefits that we can exploit, and if we reduce the MER, as I say, and we modify the power supply in sympathy, we can save some real energy. So now we're ready to do some actual tests in the live network. So we went to a BBC site in the Midlands of the UK, went to a place called Clun, which is in the middle of absolute nowhere. But it was perfect because it actually gave us some edge of coverage reception. The BBC network is a dense network, as we say, with over 400 transmitters, and finding edge of coverage, unless you go to the real extremities of the UK, is actually quite hard sometimes. But nonetheless, we went to Clun, and that gave us a combination of edge of coverage. That means when you're doing mobile receiver tests, you actually run out of RS signal, which is good, because that's one of the conditions we needed. We also obviously had dominant single transmitter conditions, and that's when the ratio of the transmitter you're measuring is effectively the only transmitter that is in the measurement. And then we had significant as well SFN overlap. There was about 25 transmitters all contributing to the east of the coverage area from Clun. So our measurement approach used mobile receivers, calibrated mobile receivers with a whip antenna on the roof, and we measured BER, we measured signal strength, and we tagged all of these things to GPS so we could actually plot them afterwards and compare them with our spectrum planning predictions. And we were able, with this transmitter, to change its configuration, as I say, in the live network for either 25 dB, 20 dB, and also 15 dB, which is not a configuration we're promoting, but we wanted to see if we could actually measure the difference. We were also very careful when we did this as well to make sure we didn't bust the mask. So we have a very tight mask, which we need to protect as well, so we don't interfere with adjacent users. And on all those configurations, we ensured compliance with the mask. So on the slide now, you can see the edge of coverage measurement results. I should just say very briefly, actually, we could find no difference between 25 dB MER and 15 dB MER in dominant transmitter or SFN overlap. But we could see a small difference between 25 dB MER and 15 dB MER edge of coverage. However, this is edge of coverage where we found a difference, but I'm showing you here 25 dB MER on the top plot and 20 dB MER on the bottom plot. Now, the little boxes, they're 50 meter pixels, and they've got three colors. So the green pixels, that basically means there's between 0 and 5% errors. We call that in coverage. Then we've got some amber boxes, between 5 and 10% errors. That is edge of coverage to us, and once you get into that condition, you're almost certainly going to hear some impairments on your radio. And then the red pixels is out of coverage. So you can pretty much see across these 50 meter pixels at the edge of coverage, the actual difference between 25 and 20 was very, very small. And then when we plot that on a graph effectively for the same stretch of road, and here we've got the average BER across all these 50 meter pixels from good coverage on the right-hand side as we drive along the road until we're out of coverage. You can see the performance between 25 and 20 dB MER is very, very close. So I'm going to show you two videos now of the same stretch of road again. The first video is at 25 dB MER. The second video is when the transmitter was configured for 20 dB MER. As I say, this is on a live network, in the BBC network. And when I press go in a second, what you'll hear is a little bit of audio glitching, even on the 25 dB MER video. That's because we are already in that 5 to 10% error location, so we're getting very close to the edge of coverage. You'll also notice, of course, that the audio clips are different because it's live radio. So we did the first measurement probably in the morning, and then we went back and did the second measurement in the afternoon. So the only clue I'm going to give you is look for the house on the left-hand side, and let's see what you think when you see the two videos. So I hope you will agree with me that the point of failure was within just a few meters of each other. So that convinced us with those tests, both in the lab and in the field measurements, that changing the configuration of the transmitter from 25 dB MER to 20 pretty much showed that there was no impact on coverage, and it was almost impossible to measure a difference, to be honest with you. When we apply the MER adjustment with the power supply optimization on those 150 Doherty transmitters, existing transmitters in the network, we're expecting to save about 0.3 gigawatt hours per year, which equates to about a 14% reduction in energy usage across those 150 sites. And this has made it, the final point is, we've also spent quite a lot of time to automate that process. And why is that good? It means that we can now do almost all of this upgrade remotely, which from a different sustainability point of view means that we don't have to send people in cars and do all this manually, which is very time consuming and is another area of energy usage. So that is that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Phil, for sharing that. And it feels so good that we in the room, so many of our presentations are talking about climate sustainability and what we can do to improve that in our regions. We do have time for a question from the floor, so please raise your hand if you'd like to ask anything from the morning. Could we have a microphone just over here, please? Please just tell us who you are and where you're from as well.
Yes, it's Bruno Cigrovski, OIV. We are the network operator here in Croatia. So I got a question for Phil from BBC. It's a hot topic for everybody, but especially for us network operators, I mean power consumption. You mentioned automation process in the last part of your presentation. So can you tell us more about that process regarding the optimizing?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So optimization, I think, is a really important part of the process. The start of the process really is to prove the point, to make sure that we weren't going to damage coverage. But the automation, what that gives us is an ability to realize the savings without burning yet more carbon. So with one of our transmitter manufacturers, we've developed the ability to remotely upgrade the transmitters. So that just builds to the saving. We can do the work much more quickly. If we had to go around and manually reconfigure 150 transmitters, that would take probably a year or something. So here we can do this much more quickly, realize the savings quicker, and we don't basically put fuel in people's cars to go and do the process. So yeah, automation is a really important thing.
Thanks so much, Phil. Actually, I just had one quick question, Adriano and Javier. I think throughout the day we're talking a lot about how important collaboration is. It's what we do at WorldDAB. It's why we're all here today. And I'm really interested to hear any really quick sort of practical tips in terms of how you've been able to collaborate with partners across the region to achieve success in DAB+ and certainly in the digital switchover.
Talk to each other, bring all the people to the round table, and really, as Jacqueline said before, yes, and which are the interests of the different, understand the interest of the different parties, and so find a way together to collaborate, because at the end, and we saw it in the studies and on the numbers everywhere, it's a win for everyone, and so it's really a win-win-win-win-win situation, and that's a great success.
Yeah, so round tables and understanding everyone's different points of view and challenges and perspectives.
Yes, and this round table we did also subgroups. So one technical where more the engineer are talking together, more marketing group, more regulation, and so bring this different level together, and at the end have a common goal for the digital switchover.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's just really interesting to hear what we can do tomorrow in our own areas and those practical tips that just help us nudge forward. Well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for, and that brings this morning's sessions to a close. I know, already. This afternoon, we'll hear about some innovative approaches that are reshaping DAB+ radio for audiences across Europe. Plus, still to come, connected cars and an update on the new automatic safety alert system. So plenty more to follow. Don't forget, if you're on social media, we're on hashtag WorldDAB Summit 24. Do follow along and share your insights. Huge thanks to our lunch sponsor, Media Broadcast. Please enjoy your lunch, enjoy some more stimulating conversations, meet some more people, and meet us back here at 1 p.m. Thanks so much.